I've talked to a patient one time saying like, yeah, at least if I'm dead, I'm thin. That's a reality, dude. And like, that's where it's so distorted. And you're just looking at them. You're just like, oh my, your heart goes out to them because you're like, you've got to this place of such hopelessness, or just this ego thing of like, I want to look like this, and it doesn't matter what I do or what I'm doing to my body. I'm going to die like this.
What's good, everybody? This is Jeremiah Knight here, and thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Therapy House, the podcast. Here we are continuing the second half of our Plateful of Shame episode, where Luis, Alexa, and I continue to discuss eating disorders and the intricacies of treatment. So stay tuned and enjoy.
It's just as important to separate both parts as it is to kind of view yourself as one and understand that the eating disorder part is always trying to protect you. Mm-hmm. It's just misguided, and we can't listen to the thoughts that it comes with. But we are all one, right? And anything self-destructive is trying to meet a need and trying to protect you in a sense, but you can't listen to it or take it seriously. I think a lot of values work is so important. It's kind of existential, right? Like, what's important to you? Where do you find meaning, purpose? And I think, how do you want to feel? Right? I think like focusing on habits and feeling is big in recovery, because you can't trust what you see, and you don't want to base changes off of your body image or, you know, the way you think you look. So a lot of it is like, how do I value feeling? Like, I value having energy. I value thinking clearly, being able to show up and be present. Those are all values. Okay, well, what habits can get me there? Yeah. I think that can be part of the work too, because I value those things, right? I don't want to be lightheaded and not be able to be present, especially for my field, right? And for everyone, everyone's life is important, you know? It's a lot of existential work, I would say.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I mean, I love solution focus.
I love that too. Existential. It's all important. Yeah.
But ACT is perfect.
I love that. I use that a lot when treating individuals with eating disorders.
You throw out the bus analogy?
Throw the bus analogy, all that, you know.
I love it.
Yeah, and I use a lot of IFS too, internal family systems.
Oh, that's great too, yeah.
How do you explain the bus analogy for the listeners? Because they're like, bus analogy, break it down for them.
Yeah, I always give that example because it's like, again, when you're trying to like identify what's your eating disorder part, healthy self, I tell them like, just imagine yourself like you're on the bus, and just imagine like your healthy self. Like, you understand your healthy self, what it values, what it wants, what it needs, and you're kind of driving the bus. And then let's use the example of like your weight. You saw your weight at the doctor. Your healthy self is in control. You get in the morning, you're there, and like, wow, yeah, like I'm feeling good, cool, like not really thinking about my eating disorder. And then you get to the doctor and you get on the scale and the doctor tells you your weight. Now that eating disorder part is activated, and the eating disorder part kind of running down the aisle, kicks you out of the seat, and now the eating disorder in control. And now you're like, I got to go home and restrict. I got to go do this. I got to go exercise for 2 hours. You're obsessing about what I'm going to eat, what I'm not going to eat. And that's when your eating disorder part's in control in that moment. And so the goal is to be able to like try to calm that part down and understand when that part is there and you're active in that part, and try to get your healthy self back in control. And understanding what that eating disorder part is, like what it feels like, what it believes, like what its thoughts, what its voices of it, and understand. And like, you know, with IFS, like you do some kind of like parts work around connecting with that eating disorder part, because it's like that part is coming up for a reason, you know? And I think I like IFS because you see these parts of yourself and there's no bad parts, you know? You're not looking at your eating disorder as like this bad thing. You can look at it and say, yeah, this was helpful. Like somewhere along the way, it helped me, it protected me. And you can show gratitude to that part and understand that like you're serving a purpose and a function in my life, and your intention is here to protect me. Your intention is here to like keep me safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And so looking in that way helps them to see that like, yeah, there is some like, could be a positive aspect of it, but also on the flip side, like it's actually creating more suffering for your life too. This part is popping up in things in ways that it doesn't need to be here in this moment. It's just a part that comes up because you created it. It helped you to like along the way in life. And so understanding and showing it gratitude and compassion to that part. And like I said, like we all have different parts of ourselves. We all deal with whatever. It could be the harsh inner critic. It can be the insecure part of ourselves, the anger part. We all have these parts of ourselves.
Sadness, depression.
Yeah, depression.
Shame, guilt.
Shame and guilt. And so like all these parts serve a function and a purpose in our life. But also, like I said, on the flip side, it's not helping us no longer. So when I do IFS, it kind of teaches them like, you know, the part is like, it doesn't trust you in a way to be in control. And that's why it comes up in your life frequently because it doesn't trust you to keep it safe because you didn't keep it safe, whether it be one time or many times in your life, you didn't keep it safe. So it can't trust that you can keep us safe. So in order to start building trust, you have to connect with that part when it comes up.
Yeah.
And like do like an inner dialogue with that part. And it's very fascinating when you start kind of leading people through parts work because it's like they start kind of like gaining insight of like why it's there.
Yeah.
What's its purpose? What is it doing?
And the relationship changes.
The relationship starts to change, you know, and so that eating disorder part will begin to kind of lessen in your life when you're able to like say, hey, like, I know you're here for a reason. I know you're here for a purpose. And like, I appreciate you showing up and wanting to protect me, but like, is it cool? You can give me some space right now to like, just allow myself to be in control. Everything will be safe. Everything will be cool. Like, we're not going to like, nothing dangerous is going to happen. Can you like give me some space and allow me to be in control in this moment? And you continue to do that. You'll feel that part, you know, sometimes like as you're leading this work, like you can see there's a conflict going on because that part may be stubborn and be like, no, we're not moving. I'm not going to allow you to control. So and then you just have to do some more work around that, you know, but until you kind of build that trust with yourself, because these parts are just you. It's not like these separate entities or these different voices in your head. They're just you. You're working with yourself and building trust with yourself. And so if you can start building trust with yourself, that part will begin to like just kind of take the back seat, you know, and you're going to be more in control. And when you're in more control and you keep yourself safe, that signals to you that like, okay, I can do this. Like, I don't have to have this part come up all the time in ways that is causing me suffering and pain in my life.
Yeah. I like the analogy also because it acknowledges that these are passengers on the bus. You don't need to beat them up and throw them off the bus. Like, no, there's a particular way that you handle each passenger. Regardless, you're still the driver of the bus. You get to decide where you go, tend to your passengers, hold them in check, set the boundaries you need. But no matter what, you're still driving the bus and you're letting the values, where you want to be, how you want to feel, guide you, not the feelings.
Yeah. I love that you guys are talking about the safety and trust because that's everything. It's like learning to trust yourself. And how do you learn to trust yourself? Compassion and patience. I think patience is like the biggest part here. It's kind of like if someone's trying to pressure you into making a decision, like, what do you want to eat for dinner? What restaurant do you want to go to? And they're yelling at you and they're like poking you and they're rushing you and they're being like maybe critical or shameful or, you know, think of it faster. You're not going to be able to even know what you want under that kind of pressure. It's only when like you have a little bit of space, there's a little more compassion, and then you can be like, oh, okay, actually, I want this. You know, we're never pushed into self-discovery in like that kind of way. So
yeah, but you can see the pressure kind of creates a feeling of like I'm on a timer.
Yes.
I need to make a decision by this time, and then what do I want? I don't know what I want, and then
judgment.
I was like, wait, there is no time limit. If you don't make a choice, there's no consequence. So what? Your friend's gonna be mad. Like, hey, just let me think. I might want Little Caesars. I might want Nobu. I don't know.
Nobu.
I don't know.
Damn,
Let me
fancy.
think.
That's fancy. Nobu, damn, boy.
It's the biggest dreams.
Yeah, that's really big. Yeah, dude, that's like polar opposites. Bro.
Totally. No, but it's also like learning to trust your hunger cues. I mean, that's like the start of it. And I think, it can get complicated when you have clients in more critical care because it's so much more than like learning to trust yourself. It's like, well, stabilizing your safety. Like, well, your heart rate's really low, you know? So I think that's where the complexity comes in.
Yeah. My heart goes out to all the nutritionists, man. They're the number one enemies to eating disorders. And like, that's every nutritionist battle is with them because it's like, you're telling me I eat 3 meals and 3 snacks, this amount, like what? And that's where it's the resistance part, you know, because then the nutritionists have to like battle that, you know, and so my heart goes out to them, but like they get the brunt of people's anger. They get the brunt of people's eating disorder parts, you know, and because it's the controls. Like, you're not going to take this away. Like, you're not going to tell me to eat 3 meals, 3 snacks. And like, that's part of the treatment too. And I think sometimes like especially with eating disorder clients is like, they can get really fixated on like, you're just telling me to eat. That's all, but that's part of it. You have to learn how to eat.
Yeah.
It's like you're being a baby. Like you have to be like a baby again and like a child and like teach them how to eat in a normal pattern or normal behavior. And that's where like the 3 meals and there's all different meal plans. Like I know like at Lotus, there was like the Nourish plan and then like, forgot the other plan, but it's like these different levels of plans and it's based on, it's all individualized of like their needs for nutrition. And that could be the hardest thing in treatment for them is to learn how to eat and to eat those 3 meals and 3 snacks. And that's just part of like the treatment. And like, you have to like tell them these things of like, and they'll complain to you as a therapist, they're like, I have to eat all this food. What the hell? Like, but you have to remind them, I'm like, like you have to learn how to eat.
Yeah.
Right. And this is part of like your healing process and journey in this is to like learn how to structurally eat.
Yeah.
And that can be the hardest thing in treatment is dealing with that, And then, and also there's other things like you have to, part of it, like we have this thing called recovery record where people can take pictures of their food and like document it. So it's basically like accountability, like you have to like, and we tell patients to like, take pictures of your food, document what you're eating. So it just gives us information if they're actually doing it, And a lot of times too, like they'll skip meals or they'll manipulate that too. So
I forgot to take a picture.
Yeah. And I think part of one of the kind of standards of like wanting to get clients that have eating disorders to a point is you want to get to the point we call it intuitive eating. And so like intuitive eating is basically you're just tuning in with your body and like tuning in with your hunger and fullness cues is when you eat, when you're hungry, you eat. And when you're full, you stop. And like, that's so hard for individuals, especially with, eating disorders is their hunger and fullness cues are offline.
Yeah.
And like, there's research that shows that like hunger and fullness cues get restored between 3 months to like a year. And so that's why the meal plan, that's why I tell, patients is like, that's why the meal plan is so important because you have to get your hunger and fullness cues back online. And if you don't, or you're kind of like, sidestepping and kind of like cheating, like you're not going to, those hunger and fullness cues are not going to always, they're going to come back online. And so this is why you have to regularly eat. And it's so hard for them because like with the anorexic, it's like, it could be painful eating. It could be like, I'm feeling I'm going to die right now because they're just not used to eating that much and eating in a normal way, And so that's why it's so important that you have to follow your meal plan. You have to follow that and kind of be regular with that and be consistent with that and deal with the discomfort of that. And that's like one thing I teach a lot, especially with ACT, is like kind of like the learning how to sit with that discomfort and making room for that discomfort, And there's ways to help with that because they'll get bloating or their stomach will hurt. So you find different ways, different types of breathing, stretching, heating pad, whatever it is, like to help with that, But also the big part is like sitting with that discomfort and like you're feeling uncomfortable. That's okay. Like you have to learn how to sit with that discomfort. And the more you sit with that discomfort, it's going to become less, discomforting. So there's that element that could be really challenging for, people that have eating disorders.
Since we're here in treatment, of your treatment process, I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that you guys are working on. You're even acknowledging that this is an issue or working them through pre-contemplation or just like, is this a problem? This is not a problem. Eventually getting them in treatment, working through it all. What pieces of the process do you guys feel like, are the highs, parts that you feel like, oh, this is amazing. This is why I'm in this work and feels really good. What parts are the lows where you're like, oh, I dreaded this moment. Like I really got to hang on to kind of get through this piece.
Yeah. I mean, there can be a lot of both. I think people being a part of someone's process when they're uncovering their potential and finding purpose. And I think a lot of times that purpose involves helping other people, helping themselves, whatever. Kind of seeing the light in someone come up, I think is incredibly rewarding. You're watching people heal a lot of repressed traumas, right? So that's really rewarding. Just feel better, be healthier, understand their worth. Like I deserve to eat. I deserve to feel good. Just being part of that process is really rewarding. And then there's a lot of people you work with, and I'm sure you have more experience than I do in this, but there's a lot of people that don't feel like they deserve it or don't really want it. They're kind of in between. And I think working with clients like that is really hard.
How come they feel like I don't deserve the...
I think there's a lot of that. I mean, that shame. I mean, I think with a lot of mental health struggles like depression, right? I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to have intimate, meaningful relationships. I think a lot of people feel like they're not worthy. And so sometimes that switch flips and people are like, I am worthy. And I think a lot of people stay stuck in it. For whatever reason, it's self-punishing. They just don't feel like they're worthy of it, or they can't see the light. And I think that can be one of the harder parts, definitely.
Yeah, kind of piggyback on that. Like, I think the element of sick enough comes into play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a very black or white thing. You know, people come with that kind of black or white or all or nothing thinking. It's like, well, I'm not at a place where like I'm about to be hospitalized. I'm not at a place where I'm near death's door. So I don't really need treatment because I'm not there, you know? And I've seen that a lot in treatment. And this is the thing, kind of like the stages of change or pre-contemplation, contemplation in that space when you're talking to them. It's like, I'm not that sick. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still functioning, still go to work, still go to school. So do I really need treatment? Because I'm not at a place where it's like near death's door or I'm about to be hospitalized, you know? And that's the thing, you have to work with him on that, is that kind of black or white, all or nothing thinking. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter that you don't have to be at a severe place where you're going to die to get treatment. Like, it can lead there if it's unchecked, you know? So, but like, you're at a place where it's impacting your life. That's why you're here. That's why you're here right now.
Yeah.
Because it's impacting your life in some way. Yes, there's levels, grades to it, mild, moderate, severe, whatever. But like, it's still a problem. And you still need treatment. You still need help, because like this thing is like impacting your life in a way, and you know, whatever it is, like your thinking process, like your psychological aspect of it, or how you're viewing yourself, like that deserves treatment.
Yeah.
That deserves treatment. It doesn't matter, you know, like, and helping them to see that of the sick enough. And that could be the one thing that kind of like the ambivalence around getting a treatment is the sick enough thing. And that's very big in the eating disorder thing, and eating disorder world, and treatment is the sick enough. Oh, I'm not sick enough, so I don't need treatment. I'm good.
You find that's where the lows begin for you guys? Because I mean, there's a bunch of nuances with that, even within the pre-contemplation piece. Is this a problem? I mean, I eat every day. I mean, it might be one meal and tons of water, but like, at least I'm eating. It is not as bad. I'm trying to lose weight. I have this misinformation that I'm going by that they don't know is misinformation. At least then, like, what's wrong with this? At least then there's you having to like, hey, this is a problem you deserve. This is faulty misinformation. This is what like the actual information is. And then even then of like, well, it's eating. It's even how are you going to like, you know, you can't stop me from eating. You can't make me eat. Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to like understand like what's going on in your body and medically and like hormones wise, the biochemistry of your body, because like this is the one thing that like, you know, like that's why the other day, like I was helping out in a clinic on Wednesday, it was this individual was like, well, I'm eating and doing all these things and like I don't feel bad or whatever, and then you check their vitals, it's all a mess.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that thing, and especially with hormones, you get more into that, it helps them to see more clearly of like what you're doing to your body when you're not eating, when you're not getting the proper nutrition, like you're not in your hormones and your heart rate and your vitals are not working properly.
Yeah.
You may like be at whatever, it may not like be at some healthy weight, or it's not impacting your life in a severe way. But when you start looking at your heart rate, you can die at any moment.
Wow.
You know, so it's like helping them to see that aspect, because it's not so clear. It's not evident, you know, like it's not.
Yeah. I feel fine. What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is why it's great and goes back to working with the team, because you can get that information from the medical doctor, and the doctor can tell you like, yo, this is where their vitals are at. This is their heart rate. They're not eating. And they can tell you and try to manipulate and lie, but the facts and the data doesn't. And so this is why it's so great to have those data and facts in front of you when you're dealing with an individual, because they may be telling you these things, but you're looking at this, you're like, nah, it's not adding up here.
Yeah.
You're not eating. You're not, something's going on here. And then you show them, and sometimes that scares them to death. Like when you tell them about those things about like your heart rate and like
come to Jesus.
Yeah. So and this is why you have to have those come to Jesus moments sometimes with people. because you're going to die. You're going to die if you don't get this under control. And and that can shake them up. Or some people are at a point where like, I don't care really, you know? Yeah. And that could be the hardest thing. That could be one of the lows too, is when you're dealing with someone that doesn't care if they die.
Yeah. That's hard to see.
That's hard to see. I've dealt with that, you know, sitting with someone like, I don't care if I die. I don't care if this takes me out, you know? And that's hard. And when they're in that kind of mindset of hopelessness and helplessness, to help them pull them out of that, it's hard because they made a decision already. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'd rather have this shape and size and die. That's like, that's a reality, dude. And like, that's where it's so like distorted. And you're just looking at them. You're just like, oh my, your heart goes out to them because you're like, you've got to this place of such hopelessness. Or just this ego thing of like, I want to look like this, and it doesn't matter what I do or what I'm doing to my body. I'm going to die like this. At least I've talked to a patient one time saying like, yeah, at least if I'm dead, I'm thin. I'm in the casket and they see I'm like thin. That's okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So given the success rate of eating disorder treatment, which I believe you said, what, 21, 23%?
Yeah. 21% makes a full recovery. And there was a study, I can go a little bit. There was a study in the UCSF study, and it was said like 3 out of 10 patients with anorexia nervosa make a partial recovery. So that's about 21% will make a full recovery. And the study results, there was an online survey, and they surveyed 387 parents, of whom 83% had children with anorexia nervosa, 6% with atypical anorexia nervosa, and a remainder with other eating disorders. So among the 21% who made a complete recovery, 94% had managed to maintain their recovery 2 years later. But unfortunately, patients who have achieved partial recovery continue to struggle. And so about 75% only make partial recovery. And they continue to struggle kind of throughout the rest of their life with kind of relapse and continue to relapse and recover, relapse, recover.
So given those rates and the nuances we discussed with the highs and the lows, especially within the pre-contemplation phase, and I can see how it's very easy for, you know, a provider, a clinician to kind of really do a whole lot more work than the client is, which quite often we are told not to do, because then that robs them of actually finding the insight, changing those thoughts or theories about their life and how they do actually appear in the world. How much of it for you do you feel like you guys feel responsible for? Because I see you guys on the precipice of, hey, if this person isn't convinced, it doesn't start change, they're dead. And then I'm the person that's standing in between or is like trying to convince them. And if I do a bad job, then bloop. Is it more so like that, or how do you see it?
Well, I was going to say you probably have more pressure than I do because I'm in private practice right now, so it's a lot different. So at one point I did work with clients who were struggling a lot more, you know, when I was at the clinic, but now I really only see clients, it's mostly disordered eating, I would say, and some drop out of therapy, but most, you know, with disordered patterns do recover and they want to recover, and they're seeing me privately and paying privately, which I think that also impacts it too. And so I generally don't see as much of that, and I don't feel as much of the responsibility.
So then, even with the ones
still there,
that
but
it's so at least then I'm questioning how do you manage it? Even though there's a piece of which, hey, if you don't see me with this, I mean, it's not like you're gonna drop dead tomorrow, but then that's still lingering out there. I'm hoping that when you leave me, you're getting treatment, but there's no accountability person out there. You could keep this a secret and then continue disordered eating. And how responsible do you feel for that? And or at least how do you manage it?
I mean, of course, it varies client to client, but I would say I know deep down that you're only going to change if you're ready to and willing to. Yeah. You know, and I really try to remind myself of that. And that goes for any client that's coming in with any kind of presenting concern. So, of course, it happens. I think it happens with me more with kids and teens. Not that I don't have empathy for adults. Of course, I have empathy for adults, but I think there's just a bigger part of my heart that goes out to like a child. Their brain's not fully developed, right? Whereas adults, of course, I feel for them. They're suffering. That everything is valid, but at least they have some, for the most part, autonomy. Their brain's fully developed. they have more of a sense of self for the most part.
Right.
With kids and teens who are stuck in that, maybe don't have a great home life and aren't ready, and maybe they're not developmentally at a place where they can't even make those big decisions, right?
Yeah, let alone for their life.
That really is harder for me. Yeah. Again, it's all upsetting, but with a teen and a kid especially, there's so much about life and yourself you don't know.
Right.
And yet you're harming yourself in a way that is really bad.
Yeah. And for their own scope, it's so little.
Yeah.
Their own microcosm of society is so, it's not vast. It's not different and diverse. It's just, nope. Well, Sally is doing this, and she has the body that she wants.
Yeah.
I see the attention she's getting. Why not? I think it's also then tough when the kids are like, oh no, I'm 10 toes down. I'm going to stick with this. And parents are like, I don't know. I can't talk to them. Parents are helpless.
Yep.
Then again, I can see how that's impacted, because then a health piece there. I know, and I've seen it. I've worked with other people. If this continues, this could be bad.
Yeah.
Parents are helpless. I'm feeling helpless. I can't change the situation. So then it's like compacted. In those moments, then how are you able to take a step back and like, hey, I'm not responsible for this. This is, again, the client still has agency, still has autonomy, has choice. What do you tell yourself to kind of?
Yeah, totally. This is all way easier said than done, but really managing expectations for each client and each situation. Like for some people, you're just planting a seed. For some people, you're just a safe space. For others, you're really going to be part of their healing journey, and you're going to facilitate that and watch them grow and come out of the self-destructive patterns they're in. But I think that's why you consult with other therapists. That's why you have a team. That's why maybe you have your own therapist.
Oh, yeah, you don't do it alone.
Yes. And at least for me, like I consult with another therapist. I have a therapist. So I think it's really managing expectations, and it would kind of go with anything, right? Like substance use, depression. I mean, the client's only going to change as much as they're willing and able to, and a lot of people are not willing or able to. So I think we have to be reminded of that and yet do our best, You
just have to meet them where they're at, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like common sense, kind of just being to meet them where they're at and their level of change. Because, people come in, treatment, and they're at different levels of change, you know what I mean? Like some of them are ready at a point, like, I'm tired of this. Like, I want to get this managed and healed from this.
Yeah.
And then others, they're coming in, they're like, I don't want to. And so, like, you have to start where they're at. Okay, you don't want to, okay, I mean, do some motivational interviewing techniques type of thing. And then sometimes they'll move up that change and be like, yeah, I think this is a problem.
Right.
But I don't know where to start,
Yeah. What about you and your level of like responsibility or feeling of responsibility in treatment? Because I mean, you're basically the last line of defense here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's why there's safety in working with, all these different types of, individuals that are part of people's treatment, because it's like, I don't have to like do that alone, and that's where like medical doctors will have to make their recommendations. So like, yeah, you're going to need a higher level of care, like this program is not meeting like your needs or meeting like where you're at, because it's at a more severe place. So like you have to go to residential,
right.
You have to go to IOP, PHP, whatever, so like I have that kind of, that backup, of that people like being able to like, kind of make, recommendations and things like that. And, so, and then also sometimes like it's a severe place, you have to hospitalize them. And there's been severe places where like they have to get a feeding tube and feed them through that, because they're just refusing to eat. So their rights are taken away at that moment, like, all right, you don't want to eat. Okay, this is what's going to happen.
Right. At least then there's some solace in, hey, there's a team backing me up. I'm not in here alone. So at least then there's the fortified piece. Even with, when we were back in Starlight, there were some pieces where it's like, we're part of a team, but like, I'm the, the pitch hitter. Or
I'm
the one that closes
I'm leading
things
this.
out.
I'm about to close it out. Yeah.
So at least then in my part in that realm, some of those pieces where it's like, okay, I still, even though I'm part of a team, I still got a specific piece, a specific role to play in this. And my job is to be one-on-one with you and to help you think about things in a different way of like, eating is an issue. And we need to have, how do we make this happen? How do we at least even start, or at least what's the roadblocks? Yeah. And I know some people have just been able to, they feel that pressure, and it's very easy to kind of rush that process rather than, let's take our time, let me figure out where we're at. What's the barriers that are blocking you? Okay, let's tease those out a little bit. Let's get on the bus. Let's figure out how we control this piece of us. No, like, you need to eat. You're going to eat or you're going to go in the hospital. Like, let's cut to...
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you gotta take each step.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And that's why, like, I come from a very harm reduction kind of perspective on this with eating disorders, because, again, it's like we've been talking about, it's the control thing and it's their thing. And if you come in a place like what you're saying, like, you better eat or you're going to go to a higher level of care.
Yeah.
That's just not going to fly with a lot of them. They're going to be like, fuck you, like, like but like you come from a place of like, I'm not trying to take your eating disorder away, but like, how can we start cutting back on this? And so like my approach at times, like, especially if I work with people with binges, if they're binging 5 times a week, okay, can we at least this week, let's start 4 times a week, all right. And it kind of gives them a sense of like, okay, like, I didn't do it 5 times this week. I only did it 4. Oh, okay. And then you kind of work with that and like, then you start kind of going down, like, let's do it 3 times a week. Let's challenge you on that. And again, that gives them some trust with you, because if the eating disorder part is active and there in the moment when you're sitting across from you, they see you as an enemy.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking away my eating disorder. But if you come from a place of like, all right, I'm not here to take away your eating disorder. I want to help you just decrease it. Let's start decreasing it. Let's start.
Even then, that might be even too fast. They might have to take me out to dinner first. Like, let's talk about this. Like, hey, how are you? How you doing?
Yeah.
And then like, hey, what has this been for you in your life?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have to start there. Yeah, for sure. And kind of get to know the history and like see where they're at with all that and what it brings meaning to them and all that, and understand that, and it helps you in that perspective of like, okay, like, this is something that's really meaningful and really like something that they need in their life. And so I can't come from a place of like, you better stop that, or like, and I think a lot of the eating disorder, standard eating disorder treatments like that. And I think that's why sometimes like it can be hard and this is why the rate may be low of recovery, because we're coming from a place of total eradication of these behaviors and symptoms, which may not be realistic.
Yeah.
And so we have to find a happy medium, all this of like, and that's why I like the harm reduction model in this, because it's like, still gives them a sense of control in a way and autonomy, but also you're making some like groundwork with it either, and some change in this. Cause it's like, I get to make this change. Like, you're not telling me to change. Like, I get to make it, and so then it gives them some motivation,
some
choice, and then, and then they start feeling better in their body when they start decreasing like the binges or they're eating. And that gives them more motivation too. Cause like, man, I haven't felt like this in I don't know how long, like I'm starting to feel more clear headed. I'm starting to feel like the fog lifting, and so that's a motivation and kind of reinforces that the positive reinforcement of that, of like, oh, I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
Not feeling so crappy anymore, you know?
Well, I think in many ways, this kind of relates to everything. It's like small steps, a lot of self-compassion, and then really focusing on self-acceptance while trying to change. And I think that you can apply that with any kind of struggle, right? Like depression, cognitive distortions, like negative self-talk. You can't pressure and try to perfect your way into trying to change something. It's always breaking it down into really, really small steps, lots of compassion, lots of acceptance.
Can I have high expectations and like really strive for being perfect and amazing as I know I am? Come on. Love to get into, at least in the aftermath of just like getting existential and all the things that life changes, but at least we're running out of time. So at least then I want to throw this at you. You are then sitting on this kind of precipice of the unknown in the future, which brings anxiety, which your client is unsure about where they'll be without their eating disorder, or at least then if they begin changing what things may look like. You are accompanying them on this edge or cliff, and somehow you are supposed to know at least something of the path ahead and that they'll be fine when you yourself aren't too sure. How do you guys explain to them of like, hey, take the leap, radical acceptance, or at least trust that you'll show up on that other side? What's your guys' elevator pitch on that?
Yeah, well, I think the patience part is big. So it's like you're just taking it day by day. You don't want to think too far ahead with anything, really. I mean, you have long-term goals, obviously, like to have a balanced relationship with food and your body, to trust yourself more, to not be stuck in the self-destructive behaviors. Obviously, there are goals, but by that point, if like maybe they're stopping treatment or they're wanting to see you less, like they probably have quite a few tools. They have the info. Now it's time to integrate it. They have the tools. They know what to do. At least with the clients I work with more disordered eating, normalizing lapses. So like that's going to happen. Again, like you were saying, it's all about just kind of managing how often they happen, harm reduction kind of thing. But yeah, like lapses are going to happen. How can we handle it when they do?
Yeah.
So a lot of understanding patients, that kind of stuff, and that they know more than they think by that point.
Yeah, I think just giving them a realistic picture of recovery, and like it's like I always tell individuals they come in, I'm like, recovery is not a linear process. You know what I mean? It's a roller coaster. You know what I mean? So like with anything recovery, it's a roller coaster. It's never like a straight line or you're going up. It's it's up and down all around, and that's going to be your journey and process in this. But eventually, it's going to like even out. But this is a process you're going to go through. And especially working with like in the EDO program at Kaiser and then at Lotus Collaborative, like treatment. And I think sometimes people come in, they want to rush it. They want to be like, I want to get this under control because I got to get back to school. I got to get back to the sports team. I have to get back to work. And they have this thing of like, okay, I could be done in 3 months. And I tell them straight up, when you leave this treatment, that's when it begins. This is when your journey begins, because this is a safe place and it's cushiony and like you're not getting as triggered and activated, and it's a very safe space for you. And so that's why I think treatment can be like positive, because it's like you have this very safe, positive space, and like everyone is there to like supportive. And that's especially like when I worked in like the PHP and IOP programs, that they can be a very supportive place. And people feel safe and they feel like they can connect with others. People understand them. And so that can help in their recovery too, of like just mutual understanding and mutual connection with others. And so a lot of times you'll see like great progress in that sense. But I help them to set them, telling them like, you're going to go into the real world. That's where your healing and recovery begins, because you're going to have to learn how to manage the triggers, manage these activators when you're comparing yourself to people, when you're like seeing individuals eating differently, or you see someone that's maybe has an eating disorder out there, and or you're connecting with that person and they're like giving you like advice and suggestions how to like be better in your eating disorder. These are all the things you're going to face. And that's where your recovery and what you're learning here translates out there. And then, like normalizing relapses, all those things like that, it's going to happen. And sometimes you may have to come back again. But this is all part of the process, because like with anything, that's why there's a lot of parallels between like eating disorders and substance abuse disorders. There's a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities in recovery and how that is. You're going to have to engage in some form of like therapy. You're going to have to engage in some form of support group, whatever, because that's what helps maintain your recovery. You just can't just get out of the treatment and then you're just have anything in like place to help you still. So like it's important that you get connected to recovery groups, to get connected to your therapist, like continue to like regularly like work on this and notice when things trigger you, activate you, things that are bothering you, and all those thoughts and feelings and all those things, like that's all part of your recovery. And so just setting the realistic kind of like expectations of like what recovery is,
Yeah. We do need to provide some sort of like plan of some sort, and they know they're heading in the right direction. Acknowledge that there are going to be some adversity, some trials and tribulations, some tests out there, and they're not going to be perfect, and that's perfectly fine. We're not asking them to be perfect. I think they're just asking them to try. I think I also like to say, hey, this is a process in which you have support. You have people that love you, people that care about you. You have me, you have the team. You're not alone in this. And many times, I'm sure on this journey, they do feel alone. Why should I change and have all these changes to come? Changes in my sexuality, changing in my body, changing in my drive, changing in the possibility of how people will react to me or how I will show up. And then I have to readjust or recalibrate my thinking of reality. You're saying I have to undistort my reality and see how it's like, no. And you're saying I'm doing that alone? Gradually, those things will come. They will all come at once. And as they come, you will be perfectly fine. You will do your best. And even if you mess up, you will still be doing your best and you will grow in it.
Yeah. It's like when you relapse or whatever, it's not a matter of like having to start over. You know what I mean? And like I think that's what, even with like substance abuse and like that thing, like on a relapse, it's like I have to start all over again. Like I know AA has that type of thing, it's like day one.
Day one.
And so like, and I tell them like, it doesn't have to be day one. You know what I mean? When we fall, or like, I always use the example of like the marathon, like when you're running a marathon and you fall or whatever, it doesn't mean you have to go back to the starting line. You just pick yourself back where you're at and just keep going forward.
I like that.
Using that example, because again, it's like the perfectionism thing. It's like, I have to be perfect in this or I can't mess up. And if if I do mess up, that means I have to start all over again. And so it's like, no, like you just pick up yourself where you're at and just keep going, because you're already kind of further in the journey in your recovery, and there's going to be failures. There's going to be mess ups. Like you just pick yourself back up and just keep going and try. I'm going to try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get back into my recovery and all that, and what's working for you, like what's been helping you to decrease that behavior and get back to that again. Like, oh, this is what was working before, and going back to that again and re-engaging with those coping skills and resources and those things. And then another thing is like have your support system. You need to have a support system in this process. You need to have people that care about you, that love you and surround you and back you up and check in on you. Like you need that, because and that's one thing I see in treatment, especially like with teenagers or young adults, is that lack of support system through this process. It makes it harder for recovery, because there's no one on their side. There's no one in just supporting them, checking them in on them. And that's what makes recovery harder. And that's like one thing about Lotus is like they really emphasize the support system. And we would always have support groups, and we would have like parent and like patient groups where they would come in. And I remember we used to have this group. It happened like around like in the evening, like 6. I think I forget if it was on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, whatever. But that parents would come and support, their loved one there. Yeah. And we would have like a group process, and like it was great because parents would be able to like express like their concerns or like the struggles around supporting their loved one through this process, And so the parents, there's that aspect too. If the parents are involved, like they're struggling too. They don't have the answers. They don't know what to do.
Right.
And so like having a program or a treatment where it includes parents and having parent support groups. I used to lead the parent support group at the Lotus Collaborative on Sunday mornings, where parents would come and just have a place to process the struggle and the suffering they're going through with their kid, and seeing their kid suffering.
Yeah, or having to fight with them every night.
Yeah.
Like, you have to eat this.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Their support system, whether it be parents or their partners, husband, wife, like whatever it is, like having that there and having that support for them too, the parents or the supporters, because it's like with anything, like we have Al-Anon, people that have like children of like, adults that grew up with parents of alcoholism or substance abuse, like they have groups for them, because they're traumatized by it. They're struggling with it. They don't have their own mental health issues because of this, so all that support for, the patient and also their loved ones can help in that recovery too.
Yeah. I love everything you just said about your support, sense of community. Like that's all crucial, I think. And not to get too existential, but also,
here we go.
I'm not obsessed with existential, I swear. I love other theories too, but
we're slowly making you one. I'm slowly making you an existentialist here.
But I think, normalizing like loneliness too. I think everyone I know that's been doing a lot of their own work and has healed from self-destructive coping mechanisms, for example, experiences kind of a deeper loneliness, but then a deeper sense of connection when they are with the right people. So I think normalize that it's okay to feel lonely sometimes. Of course, you want to make sure you have your support. You don't want to isolate too much, because the eating disorders definitely want you to isolate and feel shame. And, but also like loneliness is part of life. It's part of being present. It's part of really knowing yourself. It's also part of freedom and independence. Like I consider myself a very independent person. I feel lonely sometimes. That's okay. At the same time, utilize your support. Do not isolate. Make sure you have some sense of a community. But I think, just like normalize that that's part of the process. And like only you really know when you're struggling, to a point. Only you really know where you're at. No one else can kind of do the work for you. So it is a kind of solo journey in many ways, just as much as it's community and support. Like it's both, especially when you're kind of getting your way out of that crisis part and you're more physically stable and you have some tools. You really are kind of the main leader in that, I think. Yeah.
I really love that solo journey piece. I'll leave it on this note before Luke closes up, but last year I read The Alchemist, and I definitely thought about a lot of different pieces. I mean, everybody says that's a magical book, and what it left me with was more so of there's many different pieces and things that kind of happen in life that go by. You wonder about how come this happened, but it's just more so of how that impact leaves on you. And so as we stand on this precipice with clients, even just talking to them about this, what's on the unknown, what's on the outside there, who will you become on that journey? Who will you have to rise to the occasion? If you don't have that support network, you'll have to go out and find it. So you'll grow into someone that's maybe gregarious, or maybe someone that is, that seeks and brings people in. It's going to demand you to be more vulnerable. So you gather that skill, that openness, or at least we can talk about the barriers of that. Or maybe it calls you to be a little bit more comfortable being on your own, being with those thoughts, that anxiety in there, and learning to take those skills. So by the time we get to where we are, even though we're continuing to battle this and figure out our own relationship with eating, we've become a much more well-rounded, more sufficient, more happier person. So we have to take the journey. Why not?
We have to take the journey. Yeah, it's a journey of self-discovery, especially with eating disorder clients. It's like we talked about, it's like learning who they really are. You know, who am I outside of this eating disorder? And it goes to the existential thing is meaning. You know, I think a lot of the treatment kind of like leaves out that too. The existential spirituality part of that is like the meaning in life, what's meaningful to you. What do you enjoy? What do you like? And that's one thing I've come across is like they don't know what they like. They don't know what they're passionate about. They don't know what they want to do, kind of like goals that they want to accomplish. And I work a lot with that. You know, I can think of a client that had a success where like I could see them, I get some updates at times and like it was like a teenager and, she'd had a really bad eating disorder and like, that's the one thing that we talked a lot about is meaning and like purpose and like, what do you want to do in life? And is that eating disorder going to help you to get to those things in life? And that was, process of like self-discovery, figuring out what they want to do in life, what they want to be, like, what do they want to what do they want to do? And so like she made really huge progress and now, she's in college and like, traveling all over the world and doing these things. And like, these are things that we talked about, like she wanted to do. Like, I want to travel. I want to go and see the world and I want to go to college. I want to be successful and do all these things, and my eating disorder is not going to let me do that. And, now she's doing those things. And it's like beautiful to see that she took action and took ownership of her life and reaching those goals in recovery, and so these are kind of like successes like that like bring me hope, of like people can recover from this, people can get over this, and people can live a meaningful, purposeful, enjoyable life. And it doesn't have to be dominated by the eating disorder or your obsession about how you look and what you're eating, what you're not eating. And, it's when people live that way, it's a very like kind of like meaningless existence, when it's just constantly just that about just how I look and what are people perceiving of me, and everything's driven by that. But like once you get beyond that and see that like, like this life is beautiful, this life is great, and I can do these things and enjoy it and don't have to be afraid and anxious about everything because how I look or what I'm eating, what I'm not eating. So meaning should be a big part of treatment too, of like figuring out what's meaningful to you and your purpose and using your values to get to that place of meaning and enjoyment in life. So I want to throw out before we close, like some resources that, maybe like therapists may not know, or, if you're struggling with an eating disorder, there's the NEDA, kind of the National Eating Disorder Association. There's a lot of resources there. There's a good book to read. It's called The 8 Keys to Recovering from an Eating Disorder. And then, and I think also that like social media wise, there's one that I follow. It's called the Nalgona Positivity. And she talks a lot about like harm reduction and stuff. Harm reduction. She has her own like seminars around like harm reduction interventions with eating disorders and like gets into like trauma and eating disorders. So there's a lot of good resources on there. So take a look at that, and if you're struggling with an eating disorder or with a loved one that's struggling with an eating disorder, just reach out, look out for that person that you're seeing that's struggling. Not to shame them, not to make them embarrassed, but like, just connect and ask questions and be curious. And, and through that process, they can open up and say, hey, I need help. So, and then also you're struggling with it, eating disorder, I know everyone's in their kind of place in their journey, but like reach out for help, connect with people, reach out to loved ones. This is a thing that's can be very deadly. And so just reach out and, seek out a therapist that's eating disorder specialized, and there's hope for you. We want to thank Alexa for coming through. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming by and hearing your story and kind of your experience as a therapist working with eating disorders. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we'll have you back. So hopefully
I love that.
Hopefully again, season 3. But yes, it's been magical. So I'll close us out. Lou, how you closing us out?
Well,
Just saying bye? Or you dropping one of your new ad libs or?
yeah, just I don't know what to say,
I don't know either.
but hopefully this is helpful for everyone.
Yeah.
And hope everyone's all right and doing good, and wish you the best of this 2024.
There you go.
This is going to be your year.
Mm-hmm.
Peace out, everyone.
Peace.